Hello, welcome to BSgroup Data Analytics presents XLCubed, the forum from experts for experts. Today we will take a deeper look at functions coming with XLCubed. As there are so many of them, we will just focus on my favorite functions. Let's start with XL3 report info. This function is very useful when publishing the report to the web. With this function, you give the report consumer all necessary information about the origin of the report and the current status of the data. Within Excel, it's just a placeholder. Here we can pass the report name to display last published, published by, the path, and the web server. Now let's see how it looks in the web. Now we see all information. Also important in this case is the XL3 username function. It's always good to know which user with which privilege has rendered the report. Here we can decide if we want to see the domain name or not by passing the parameter true or false. Now let's check the XL3RowVisible and XL3ColumnVisible functions. Before using them, we should think about a global controller. In this case, I handle this in my slicer sheet. Based on an Excel cell or a slicer, we can control the visibility of a row or a column by passing the parameter true or false. If we use a global controller, it's important the calculation for true and false should be on each column or on each row. Now we deactivate our global controller and we see the rows and the columns which we don't want to see are disabled. In this special case, for the report info area, I also have created a workbook slicer. For all the following functions, we need to pass a connection ID as the first parameter. The next function in the row is XL3 last cube update. In this function, we can pass a parameter to handle the result as Excel date or not by passing true or false. Now let's check the functions to identify cube content, like attributes, hierarchies, members, and values. The first function in this section is XL3 hierarchy lookup. Let's look at the options here. We use this in our slicer sheet to display the proper translated name of an object in the report. You see, the first parameter we pass is the connection ID and then the object name. And this now we can reference to our Excel cell. The second function is XL3 member. With this function, we can convert a member in an Excel cell to an MDX object which the cube can read. We can either reference one member, a set of members, or a range. In this case, we reference one measure, second measure, a month from date calendar, sales territory. Now, this is the way if you want to address the all member This is an example if you want to address two different members, and this if you want to address a range from two. Therefore, you have to use MDX in front of it. Now, again, here we reference to our Excel cells. The third function is called XL3 property lookup. With this function, we can look up properties based on a specific member. That includes also system properties. As we can see, we pass the connection ID, the object name, the member name, and the name of the property. In this case, we use a system property member key and the system property member unique name. Also, this we can now reference. Now let's use two of them in our report info area. The last function for today's lesson is XL3 lookup. Actually, the most important one, because with this function, we retrieve the measure data from the cube. We pass the parameter connection ID, and then it's always that we pass an object, a member, an object, a member, an object, and member. This we can set to Excel. Format it properly. And now we point on another measure. Now let's make a story out of it. The good thing is, once set up the functions within Excel, we can also use a designer to change them. For example, the Excel member, we have a designer here, where we can just use to pick another value. Or for the XL3 lookup, we can also have a designer which we can use to change the content. And of course, we can change the values using our slicers. For that, we have to link now this slicer to our Excel report. In this case, I have prepared measure 1, measure 2, sales territory, and date calendar as a slicer, where I output the values in our slicer sheet. Sales territory is a slicer which can have multi-selections. For that, I have created in my slicer sheet an area for the multi-selected values. Let me show you this in an example. You see? And now my value changes when I change the slicer. Now activate our global controller to hide the areas we don't want to see. As we can see, it still works. Now the good thing in here is we can also use breakouts on these calculations. If I change the slicer, also my breakout changes its behavior. Now let's publish this to the web and see how it looks. We see here all necessary information, which we can hide or not. I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, feel free to like, comment and share. If you don't want to miss any feature, subscribe to our LinkedIn group, BSgroup DR presents XLCubed, or subscribe our blog on our homepage. See you next time, your BSG Data Analytics team.